Oh, we're live. I guess there was no start. You're just firing in, Tyler. There's no intro. There's no music like when Rob did it. But this is the Bedham and Pick'em show for week 12, Thanksgiving week. I am Russell Clay. We also have Tyler Beaker joining us. We will be missing Rob this week. We wish him well and hope he has a happy holidays. But yeah, so Tyler, big week for fantasy football, big week for football, but it's kind of jagged. We have this Thursday slate, we have Friday, and we of course have our regular Sunday, Monday, but this 3-game slate has gotten a life of its own over the last 5 years or so as the fantasy and sports betting worlds have evolved. What are your thoughts on Thanksgiving and all this good stuff?
Well, it's really hard to pay attention to every single game with so much going on. I'm usually hosting these days, so we're cooking, cleaning, entertaining, doing everything where there's minimal football watching going on. Usually it's on in the background. Excuse me, but I will say it's one of the most fun DFS slates to play just because there's a lot of ways to get unique, play some contrarian lineups. Ownership becomes super important. It's really fun in terms of the DFS slate, but for betting, we're looking at 3 games with some pretty big spreads here. It's going to be an interesting week.
Yep, absolutely. All right. Well, let's get straight into it here. You can see our little ticker on the side there. Green Bay versus Detroit -7.5. 46.5 over under. The Packers running game hasn't worked all year, and everyone getting injured honestly I'm not going to say it's a good thing, but maybe it'll force them to kind of shift and give Jaden Reed more touches, Tyler. I don't think anyone envisions this game being close, but I do think they're kind of onto something with how they're using Reed offensively.
Yeah, this is the first game of the slate. I think it kicks off at 12:30 p.m. Eastern. I imagine by 1 o'clock, 1:15, that is probably already going to be a one-sided game with the Lions roaring out to a quick start. The Packers enter with a lengthy injury report, particularly on defense. This Lions team already went up to Lambeau and just destroyed this Packers team. Now they're playing at home at 7.5-point favorites. I imagine they get going, especially with the ground game here. The Packers are a run funnel unit that you can run against pretty easily. And the last time we saw this group, Montgomery had like 32 carries. He and Gibbs combined for 190 plus yards from scrimmage. I'm expecting a big outing from these guys on the ground, getting out to a quick lead and forcing the Packers to become one-dimensional. And when we've got Jordan Love forced to drop back, it could get ugly quick.
Yeah, I guess the only question is that 7.5. Do you think the Lions cover that? They are at home. The game in Lambeau was over in the first 5 minutes. I guess my only question for you is so if they do use that running game, is there a chance they elongate some of those drives? The funny thing about the Lions is they do short plays. Like they'll do short passes to Amon-Ra St. Brown that turn into 25-yard gains. So in theory, the running game, it should be short, long drives, but a couple of David Montgomery 30-yard runs and we're in the end zone. So I don't know. Where are you at with this over under wise as well?
This could be a fun one to stack because I think everybody's going to focus on Dallas and Washington for a DFS lens. For that reason, I kind of think going heavily on the Lions makes sense. But yeah, you're right though, in terms of them, once they got a lead established, they'll be happy to run the ball pretty heavily and just milk the clock, have these long multi-play drives that just eat clock and give the Packers minimal opportunities to catch up here. The last game, they got out to a 27-3 start at one point where they just poured it on the Packers. If something like that unfolds again, RIP anyone playing AJ Dillon in fantasy.
Yeah. Moving to the next game here, Commanders Cowboys, Dallas -12.5 with a 48 over under, 48.5 over under. I'll tell you what, Tyler, 12 and a half on a 48 over under is a lot of points. Not only do they cover, but does Sam Howell have anything here? Or is this just going to be a pick six ahoy and we're done by the second half?
I might be a game behind, but I think he's 5-1 against the spread when on the road. So Howe has actually been out there slinging it. Like he is number one in terms of total pass attempts per game among all quarterbacks. But the Cowboys themselves, they've been a team that's been extremely pass heavy these last 4 games, really leaning into it. Only the Bengals passing at a higher rate over expectation. And now we've got the Washington secondary coming into town. This game's in Dallas. I imagine the Cowboys just throw a ton. They play a lot of cover too, so I imagine it's going to be a lot of dink and dunks to CeeDee Lamb, a lot of dink and dunks to Ferguson, with Brandon Cooks hitting the sporadic big play. I'm excited for Dallas, but they're a team that's historically shit the bed every year when it comes to covering the spread on Thanksgiving. They're like, I think 1-11 over the last 12 years.
Wow.
But there are some major splits as well in the other direction, saying teams with a 7-point or more spread against a divisional foe. Or I think it's 8-3 over the last 20 years. So there's trends going in each direction for this one. My lean is the Commanders cover, but this is a 11-point game where you can add an extra 6 on a 6-point teaser, make that a Commanders plus 17. I think they would cover that one.
Plus 17 feels pretty safe.
Very safe.
Yeah, in any format, unless it's college football.
Or the Patriots.
Yeah. We'll talk about them. I had to I sent in my staff picks, and that one was not easy. I flipped it 3 times before I submitted. All right. Next one and final game on Thanksgiving, 49ers Seahawks. San Francisco minus 7-point favorites, 43.5 over under. Yeah, so the Seahawks embark on a month of pain. They face the 49ers twice, the Cowboys and the Eagles over the next month. So have a feeling Seahawks could be 6-8 right at the end of this stretch. 7-point favorites only, though, for San Francisco. And San Francisco's had some weird lines the last, month or two. That Jags line was weird. Only 7, Tyler.
Well, it's in Seattle, so I guess they're giving the home team a bit of a nudge there, but question marks with Geno Smith and his elbow, question marks with Kenneth Walker and his oblique. 2 huge pieces for this offense. I would take the points with San Francisco. I think they cover here. They're a team that's last year, I think they beat the Seahawks in both games. I imagine that they do well here again, especially if Geno's limited. We do not want to see the Drew Lock show.
The old Drew Lock show.
That's going to be right around the time where you're getting that second piece of pie and you're just dozing off on the couch. It's just, this game could be a snoozer.
Yeah, that's kind of my read as well. But I guess, is there any value here, points wise, fantasy wise, anything? Or is it just kind of 49ers continue to kind of roll and put together a big second half of the year?
That's how I'm envisioning it. I think San Francisco rolls here.
Yeah. And the thing is, that 3-game losing streak, no Debo. I don't know what it is about Debo, but we see this with offenses where even though the guy's not having a big fantasy impact, sometimes just having that dude out there is just sets everything in line. And then George Kittle's wide open and Brandon Ayuk is absolutely godly.
Trent Williams being healthy too, huge for them.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. So next, let's go Friday, 1 p.m. Arizona time, 3 p.m. I think they're banking on everyone getting their Black Friday shopping done and over with. Though I will say, people don't go to the mall anymore, do they, Tyler?
No, my fiance works at a mall, and yesterday was crickets. It rained, and just nobody was there.
Really?
Yeah. This game, though, they're playing it at 3:00, very dead time, but that's because of some rule from 1961 where the NFL can't compete with high school football on Friday nights. So they've got to be done broadcasting by like 6 p.m. Eastern or something like that, which is why this kickoff's then. Um,
Oh
it's
my God.
Tim Boyle versus the Dolphins, guys.
Yeah.
I don't think the spread's big enough for the Jets.
9.5, 40 over under. Really, the hope here, if you're betting the Jets, is just this defense holds the line. They're basically Hodor holding off as, oh my God, what an analogy. As Tim Boyle's getting carried off. I mean, I can't think of a better situation than what that is. That's exactly it. No more Zach Wilson. However, it just, I mean, what are we doing with this game?
I don't know if this is one we need to play on the card. I would lean towards the Dolphins just because I think it's going to be a lot of 3 and outs. Like, okay, so the change from Zach Wilson was kind of merited. Like, it's been merited, but I think this is a change just for change's sake. It's not really going to be an upgrade whatsoever. Letting Joe Flacco sign with the Browns, letting Dobbs just go to the Vikings. Like, there's all these like midseason acquisitions that I think could have helped the Jets in a far better situation where their record's not terrible. It's just I have a real tough time seeing Boyle make anything happen here. Tua did not play, I believe, in either of the games against the Jets last year, so this is going to be an interesting one from his lens taking on this defense.
Yeah, and in terms of Tua against this defense, he has been a little turnover prone in tough matchups this year. And some of those touch passes against like high end secondaries don't quite have the same zip. But ultimately, I just don't know how the Jets score other than a Breece Hall hulking through 5 tackles to get a 60-yard touchdown. That's really been the only way they've scored touchdowns the last,
one touchdown over the last like 40 some drives. Like, it's been disgusting.
And I'd like to point out that game against the Chiefs where they scored like 17 points and I had their team total under. I get more pissed about that as the weeks go by. Yeah. Anyway. All right. Let's do hold on. Let's go Jaguars Texans. So on ESPN, this line has moved to Jags by 2, 48.5 over under. Jags playing well. They got obliterated by the 49ers, but 5-1 in their last 6 games. To this Texans team, 5-game winning streak. Defense looks solid. Texans destroyed the Jaguars the last game. Like, destroyed them. It was over quickly. Jags by 2 on the road. That feels generous to my Jags, Tyler. What do you got here?
I agree with you. The Texans have had the Jaguars number this year and last year. They beat them too. There's a good chance that I think the wrong team is favored here. I would take the Texans at home, getting the points. I think they win outright.
That's kind of my.
We should also mention, sorry to cut you off, that we did not submit our group picks here as a team. We're doing this kind of early because it's Wednesday and it's Thanksgiving. So usually as we do this, we go and describe like what everyone has as a group has done consensus wise. So we're kind of hitting this as like an early preview.
Yeah, exactly. So you're basically just getting the Tyler Beaker, Russell Clay worldview here. So it's going to be Jag centric. Unfortunately for Russ, this has been bad news going back 3 years now. Jaguars have not been able to sustain really anything against this Texans team. And I don't know. CJ Stroud's a problem. And yeah, I might take the Texans here to cover and win outright, basically. I might take the under here, though. 48.5's a lot. Jags defense is pretty good. And, Ben Stroud's been a little turnover prone the last couple weeks. I know he's been thrown for a lot of volume, but it hasn't been quite the same as what we wanted in those bigger games. So I don't know. What do you think about all that? Kind of it being a lower scoring game than we're expecting.
I kind of lean that way because of the way that the Jaguars' offense has just fallen flat going up against this team. So I see it. I see the vision there. Give me the Texans, though. I want them to cover and get the outright win. I mean, this is a good teasing spot, too. You can add that to make them Houston plus 7.5.
Oh, there we go. All right.
That's the winner.
Tease it to 7. We're good. Next game here. Chicago, Detroit.
That's wrong.
That is wrong. So we'll hide that.
Cleveland, Detroit.
Is that true?
Yes.
No.
Oh, no, it's Denver. It's Cleveland, Denver. What happened here,
right.
Rob?
I was like, Cleveland, Detroit. I'm not prepared for this one, boys. But we do have a comment. What's up, gentlemen? Let's get that money. Thank you, Rob. Yes, we should get that money. All right, let's go to the Saints Falcons here. Saints dogs by 1 point in Atlanta. We're going back to Desmond Ridder. 42.5 over under. I mean, gambling wise, these Arthur Smith, Brandon Staley games, we've been kind of on this for a while now. They're just pure chaos because of the coaching. There's no real good way to analyze these games. But I mean, do you have a read here? Saints roll. Desmond Ridder falls apart. Pick 6. Game over.
Yeah, both teams coming out of buys, so they get some extra time to prepare. Both teams with quarterback changes, question mark. We've definitely got one with Heineke no longer starting for Atlanta. The Saints, we've got Derek Carr still under concussion protocol. So for me, this feels like it's a game too early to analyze. We got to wait to see what's happening with Carr. Because if Carr is playing, I give them more of a shot. The Saints defense has been really good all year. Like, they've been great against the pass. I imagine that if we see Taylor Heineke dropping back not Heineke, sorry, Desmond Ridder dropping back to pass, we're going to see some interceptions. My lean is the Saints, but this is a game, if we were like making our normal picks, I would stay away from this one.
Yeah, that's fair. I don't really have much more to add. I'm just rooting for the Falcons to keep losing at this point. I'm kind of invested in the Falcons and Chargers just continuously losing by the most brutal way possible. So hoping for a 1-point Falcons loss on a last-minute 58-yard field goal. Can we get that, Tyler? How does that
we got
sound?
that. I like that one.
All right. And the first kick misses, but there's an encroachment penalty. Let's get that. All right. Steelers, Bengals. Steelers 1.5-point favorites, 34.5 over under. And the jokes are that this is the Iowa of the NFL. This is the Iowa of the NFL. You look at that over under, you say 34 points. Oh, come on. They're getting that. And then it's the second quarter and it's 3-0. And you're like, oh, they're not getting that. There's going to be 16 points in this game. So, I mean, what's your read on everything going on in this game? We got maybe, a little more life in this offense for the Steelers. We got no Joe Burrow, but sometimes teams kind of they got a little life that week after, and then they kind of fall apart. I mean, what do you got here? This is a weird game.
It really is. We've got a lot of moving pieces too, which makes it hard to really give strong analysis on. Jake Browning looked kind of good last week in relief of Burrow. Made some moves happen, got a passing touchdown, looked good on the ground, running for some first downs as needed. Pittsburgh last week was an abomination of offense. They got rid of Matt Canada subsequently. New OC's talking about using a bit more Jalen Warren, getting more targets to George Pickens, things we like to hear from a fantasy lens. But I honestly don't have much faith in this game. Putting up a lot of points, and in a low-scoring game, generally I want to take the dog. But a +1, it's like, nah, just stay away from this game.
Yeah, that's fair. I feel like Pittsburgh should be favored by more, but I guess with the variance of how that offense is going to look, That's kind of the problem there. So I'm taking Pittsburgh. I'm fairly confident they're going to win this game. We talk about betting against Bryce Young. Well, let me tell you, Jake Browning is Bryce Young without any of the other talent. He's just a weak-armed man. I love Jake
Slightly
Browning.
taller.
Slightly taller, weaker armed, worse version of Bryce Young. So whatever you think that is, that's what the Bengals are going to be starting at quarterback this week. So there were games at Washington where it was just like, oh my God, they got to bench him. And now he's starting in the NFL. So I guess we'll find out. Maybe Russ will be wrong. All right. Panthers, Titans. 36.5 over under. Titans -3.5. Titans season is over, but I still like this team more than the Panthers. This might be one of the games where Henry can get the ball rolling early and maybe have one of his spike games. Bryce Young, the Titans defense has looked good at times this year. That game against the Bengals, a few others where the front seven was able to take over. This might be one of those games, Tyler.
This is going to be a rough one to watch, I think. There's going to be two pretty poor defenses going up against each other with two very questionable quarterbacks under center. The Titans right now, they're 32nd in EPA per pass. They're 32nd in pressure rate. So like that on paper, that sets up for Bryce Young to look great here. I imagine we see a lot of Thielen involved, and the run game though, that's kind of like how Carolina prefers to play their offense, leaning on a guy like Chuba Hubbard, but it's just not a great matchup on the ground. Titans have been hit or miss with their run defense, but I imagine that they do well here and force the Panthers to throw. Adversely, the Titans offense, they're going against a Panthers defense that's beat up every single level. They can easily get this game going with Derrick Henry and throw some random Will Levis play action deep shots. I think the right team is favored, but 3.5 is kind of a dead number to me. Like, I don't want to take the Titans and back them by more than a field goal.
Fair enough. All right. Buccaneers, Colts, 43.5 -2.5. Now, in terms of talent and overall ability, this game is not good. Fantasy-wise, maybe taking an over sprinkle here. This one's kind of fun. Buccaneers have been getting obliterated in the secondary. That big game by Stroud and last week, Gardner Minshew struggles against top defenses, of course, but could do well here. What are your thoughts on all that's going on in this game?
This is like the fun game to me because we've got two gamer quarterbacks, guys that will do whatever it takes. And narratives aside, they're just kind of guys that just want to go all out. And I think, like you said, both these defenses are pretty poor. The Bucs are really banged up in the secondary. Both starting corners questionable. Levante David also questionable. So like there's some key missing pieces for this team. The Colts are coming out of their bye, so they get Josh Downs healthy, hopefully. He's a big piece. Loved what we were seeing from him as a rookie. But Michael Pittman, like 8+ receptions in like 8 of 10 games this year. I bet the under on his 79 reception prop for the season, and he's like on a mission to make me look like a fool. He is just picking up receptions left and right. With both corners injured, I imagine Pittman gets another 8-catch game. So I think there's a chance that this goes back and forth. The Colts defense has also been pretty brutal. So we got a shot for like Mike Evans, K-Dot, and Chris Godwin if he's healthy, for all these guys to look pretty good too. So I like the over call. That's a good one for this one. Usually this is a season where we want to hit unders. I like that call.
Yeah, and it's just like, there's probably going to be a turnover or two that puts the offense in good position. My man Gardner is he's just a man of the people. He's giving to defenses and giving to Michael Pittman. We'd probably have a much different view of Michael Pittman if he was just like a tight end, right? Like if his role is basically a Dalton Kincaid role, right? Like it's kind of the same role. He goes deeper.
Just give him another quarterback, like just a league average quarterback, not Matt Ryan, not Gardner Minshew. I think there's a lot of upside of his career trajectory, but we just need some consistency there.
Yeah. All right. Next up, a battle of former Super Bowl champions, Super Bowls of the past. Let me tell you, this game, 33 and a half over under. Vegas finally starting to adjust to what this season is. 33 and a half. I could see this getting even a little lower. I mean, Tommy DeVito versus a banged up bad Patriots defense. It's like, what's the opposite of iron and iron? Like, you know, um, Teflon and Teflon going at it, just seeing who can wrapping paper going at each other.
That's what I was thinking. Cardboard tube versus cardboard tube.
Yeah.
Just you and your little brother fighting with those.
Patriots favored by 3 here. I'm leaning on the Patriots side of things, but by no means do I have high conviction on any of this game. I'm taking the Patriots with a little confidence here, but the Giants D looked pretty good against Sam Howell last week.
Sam Howell, man. Like, if there's a person that's taking more sacks, it's Tommy DeVito at a higher rate. And the Patriots come out of their bye week with an extra week to prepare. I don't have a strong lean on this one either. Like, there's just a lot of gross games this week, guys. Like, you don't need to bet every single one. This is one where I'm just sitting away from it, not knowing who the Patriots quarterback is going to be. They have discussed that Bill Belichick said every quarterback needs to be ready for this game. They're keeping the cards close to the vest. They don't want to tell us who they're starting. So I think until we learn that information, this is one to not bet.
Yeah. All right. Browns Broncos, not Browns Lions or Broncos Lions or whatever. Denver favored by 1, 34 and a half. Tyler, I started betting on Denver last week, and the miracle last second touchdown kind of worked out again. I'm starting to I'm going to bet on this infrastructure and kind of go from there. I mean, how do you feel about that? Just betting on the Broncos infrastructure. I think the Browns are the better team. But I don't know. It's Sean Payton. And I think that 0-4 start put us off the scent of like Sean Payton being a Hall of Fame coach. They were not the better team on Monday night against the Vikings. The Vikings ran better. Offense was better. Defense played better. And Denver still won. And we're getting to the point in the year where bad organizations start to lose and good infrastructure start to win. So this is a narrative play. Russ Wilson and the Broncos figure out a way to win here, even though they might be losing the entire time.
I can get behind that. More so because I don't trust Dorian Thompson-Robinson to continually sustain drives. He's been leaning on Njoku as his like main guy, the 2 starts that he had. But outside of that, the run game. So, okay, the Broncos team, like, they're not as bad as that Dolphins game made them look. And
right.
Like, we've had that seared into our memories because of you don't often see a team put up 70 points. Because of that, all of their season-long numbers still look pretty terrible. They're still giving up a league-high yards per carry mark to opposing backs. But they've really turned things around over the last, like, month to 2 months since that, like, what was it, a week 2, week 3, week 4 game. So, yeah, I think there's a chance that the Broncos do well here, and this is another low-scoring game, 35-point game total. I'm cool with Broncos under a field goal.
Yeah. So we're rooting for that guy to get his AFC bet down to 30-1 or something like that. All right. Next one, Rams Cardinals, even 44 and a half. My initial lean is, Cardinals roll. And then I'm like, wait, Cardinals are 2-9. It's just when you watch this Rams team, they did win last week. They are beat up, old, grumpy. Things are bad everywhere, dude. This is just a bad year. And They still have the remnants of old Matthew Stafford. They still have Sean McVay doing his best to optimize. This is a 1-10 team without Sean McVay. They are horrible, but he does keep things afloat. Cardinals with Kyler and James Conner, it didn't work out last week, but they were a problem against that. They were a handful. So I'm leaning Cardinals to not only cover, I might take some alt totals to kind of beat up on this Rams team. No Cooper Kupp, at least the Cooper Kupp we know. Maybe Cooper Kupp plays, it's not Cooper Kupp anymore. What do you thought? What are your thoughts, Tyler?
I agree with you. I'm leaning toward Arizona too. The Rams have covered in just 3 games this year. The Cardinals twice that amount, 6 times. And that's with most of them being under Dobbs. So I imagine that this team under Kyler Murray, who's looked great the last 2 weeks, I don't see any rest at all. Like there's some issues like in terms of just the Cardinals in terms of lack of talent and stuff, but there's the potential for them to come out here at home and beat a divisional foe. So I would not be shocked to see Arizona pull off this upset and finally kick this trend where the Rams just have the Cardinals numbers.
Yeah. All right. Next one here. Buffalo, Philly. Yeah. This game's going to rock. We have to wait till 4 p.m. on Sunday to get a good game. This game's going to be awesome. However, the Josh Allen turnover train with Kevin Byard. All right, I just want to say, kind of feels like the Eagles are cheating. This is like when you do Madden and you turn off like teams' ability to reject trades. I'm just like, what is this Eagles team? Oh, they just have Kevin Byard now. Okay, they got Darius Slay, Kevin Byard, AJ Brown. Like this is ridiculous, dude. They just added an all-pro wide receiver, one of the best corners, and now they have just Kevin Byard hanging out there, and they just drafted 6 defensive linemen. Ridiculous team building. I mean, over games, it just averages out to where, they're just way more talented than everyone else. So, I don't know, Tyler, what are your thoughts on this game? I'm a little worried about the Bills here. I kind of feel like I like the Eagles to win. Do they cover that 3.5?
I'm looking at 3 right now on multiple books. So that's a key number. If it's 3, I think the Eagles do cover this. You said all these pieces they've added. I mean, I wouldn't be shocked at all to see them pick up Darius Leonard if he clears waivers, added just another piece to this defense. But they're looking great now. The win against the Kansas City, which I want to put win in quotes because they were like one dropped MVS catch away from losing that game, which they should have lost. But they won. That's how football plays out. We got to watch the entire game. Buffalo defense still, though, decimated in the secondary. Down cornerback 1, Trey White. Down cornerback 2, Kyer Elam. Down 2 other cornerbacks left last week's game due to injury. Like, I think AJ Brown goes buck wild here after like a no-show last week on Monday Night Football. Yeah, I think Eagles -3 is the right play here.
All right. Next one, Ravens Chargers, over under 47.5, Baltimore 3.5. I'm taking the Ravens. The Chargers are done, man. I know it's 3.5. They're done. They're finished. They're sick of it. They're not making the playoffs. They hate their coach. I mean, Justin Herbert, the most mild-mannered going back to Oregon, pissed off actively on the field. Guys just dropping everything on him. That's just a nightmare. It's just an absolute nightmare, Tyler. So I know the Ravens don't have Mark Andrews. I just feel like,
they have everything else needed. They have everything else needed to beat this team. This is the Sunday Night Football matchup. The game is in LA, where there's minimal home crowd. I think the Ravens poured on here to the degree where we could see some coaches being fired.
Yeah. Shout out Brandon Staley. This would I feel pretty confident in this one in the Ravens covering. just because of what's going on with the Chargers team. Um, I love Justin Herbert, super talented. That's a tough secondary for guys that can't separate. Keenan Allen is the man, but I mean, I don't know that throwing to him every time against this defense is going to work. And then you're working with who's that guy? Smart.
Stone
Uh,
Smart, yeah, the tight end.
Stone Smart. If Stone Smart's your big play guy, boy. All right. Last one. Bears Vikings. Minnesota 3.5-point favorites. 43.5. I'd put a big confidence rating on the Bears to cover here. Josh Dobbs has played well, but he's played well in weird ways and also made game-losing plays consistently throughout the entire year, even back to when he was on Arizona, messing up in the red zone, fumbles, interceptions in big situations. So he's playing well. Bears front pretty good. Might be able to corral him if they don't have that running ability with Dobbs. Can he get it to Addison? Doesn't sound like Jefferson's going to play this week. Break it down, Tyler.
I agree with you. It looks like Jefferson's going to sit out one more week. They've got the week 13 bye, so let Jefferson come back fully healthy in week 14. Bears Vikings earlier in the year, that was the game I believe where Fields got injured and Kirk Cousins put up it was like a 19-13 game. Like Bagent nearly won that game. Fields for a full 4 quarters. Knock on wood, he stays healthy. I think he covers here as well. I like that plus 3.5 line for Chicago. Who looked great last week. I mean, they nearly stole it against the Lions in Detroit. I think I'm with you here. Let's go Bears. I also want to say we skipped a game, Chiefs and Raiders, so we should circle back on that one.
Oh, okay. Chiefs Raiders. Oh, we don't want to miss this one. Chiefs plus 8.5. Got to be furious. Well, everyone's probably just mad at MVS. But plus 8.5. 2 scores. This Vegas team is playing well. They stuck with Miami. They did cover, right?
Correct.
So I mean, they're playing well under Antonio Pierce. I'm just wondering if this is enough here. If they got enough in the tank to beat this Kansas City team coming off a tough loss. Chiefs have ran through this Raiders team for the most part. What do you got?
Every now and then we see some massive blow-up games from Josh Jacobs in these matchups, and this could be a game where we see 20-plus carries for him if the game doesn't get into a 3-score shootout real quick here where the Chiefs race out to a lead. Kansas City, though, they're 32nd in second-half scoring this year. They just do not put up points late in the game. If this game stays close and the Raiders can claw and inch their way back into it, I think there's a good shot that they cover. This is going to be one I want to stay away from, though, to be honest, just because the Chiefs – I feel like there's a narrative at play where because of how last week's game unfolded, this should be a get right spot for them where they try to get everything rolling offensively. But this Raiders team, I think they could slow them down because they're a team that's like a bend not break defense where they prevent explosive plays. They make you do those long 10-play drives to get those drives ending in touchdowns. And Kansas City will get in their own way from time to time. You're frozen now, so I'm not sure where you're going with that.
Oh, sorry. I said, unless you're Tyreek Hill.
Yeah.
If you don't have Tyreek Hill, then that is true.
Yeah, so that's kind of my lean, is just to stay away from it. Maybe this is a teasing spot for either side, honestly.
Yeah. All right. So probably the hardest move of the week, Survivor, Tyler. Hopefully you save Dallas for this week. Anything else sticking out here for you as an obvious play? People have probably used San Francisco, Miami, Detroit, and then it's just a nightmare week. I mean, does someone go Tennessee here? Is it a Tennessee week? Something like that?
I want to throw that right back at you. Do you see something? Because I don't see anything. I think you've got to play Dallas this week. And if you don't have them, you go Dolphins against a backup quarterback. If not, man, It's a really brutal week for Survivor, truthfully.
Yep.
Do you have anything you're leaning on?
I think Tennessee feels pretty safe against the Fade Bryce Young move. Fade Bryce Young, and then honestly, if you're out of everything, Cardinals against the Rams might be something I'd entertain, but it's a 2-9 team. I mean, there's nothing. These are awful, awful games. And then you have Bills, Eagles against each other. Ravens probably don't have them. And then, as much as I have a high conviction in the Bears, are you really going to take a 3-point dog in Survivor? Like, no way, right? So, like, I think some of these, Jags on the road, that feels terrible. New England, come on. Pittsburgh week, but you're going to be sweating for 60 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
Saints, Falcons are favored. So, yeah, I don't know. Anything there? I would go Titans if you have nothing left, but
yeah, I'm cool with backing that. I think we could see a big Derrick Henry outing, who's been kind of shut down.
Yep. So, all right. Well, I guess that is the show for this week. Thank you all for tuning in. Enjoy Thanksgiving and all that it brings. Football, and more. You can catch me and Tyler. Football and stuffing and turkey and assorted carbs that we're all going to stuff in our faces. Yeah, you can find us on Twitter at Tyler Beaker.
Correct.
And Russell J. Clay. Hit us up in the Discord, fantasyguru.com. Like the video, subscribe to the channel if you found any of this valuable. And for the Fantasy Guru team, we'll see you next time.